This is the first video on working with numerical values and derivatives. Suppose the functions f and g and their derivatives with respect to x have the following values at x equals 0 and x equals 1. Evaluate the derivatives with respect to x of the following combinations at the given value of x. So essentially we have, whenever we work with numeric derivatives in a table like this, we have two steps or two considerations. So for step one, we're going to evaluate the derivative. And for our second step, we're going to plug in the values. All right, so I'm just going to start with A, and then we'll kind of move our way through. So for letter A, it says that we have 5 times f of x minus g of x. So if I take the derivative with respect to x, let's go ahead and do that. So this is step one. We'll take the derivative with respect to x. The first thing I have to do is to check if I have any products or quotients to see if I have to apply the product or quotient rule. I don't have that, so my derivative is 5 times f prime, or 5 times f prime of x minus g prime of x. Now from here it says I'm evaluating this at x equals 1. So right now I'm going to evaluate at x equals 1. So I'm going to have 5 times f prime of 1 minus g prime of 1. F prime of 1 is negative 1/3. And it says that g prime of 1 is negative 8/3. All right, so now this becomes negative 5/3 plus 8/3, which gives us 3/3, and that's 1. So evaluate the derivative, plug in your value, and simplify. Now for part B, I have f of x times g cubed of x. Now, before I start here with taking the derivative, I'm going to need to rewrite this notation. G cubed of x is the same as g of x cubed. All right, so now when I take the derivative with respect to x, I have to apply the product rule because I have a product. All right, so that means I'm going to take the derivative of f of x and multiply it by g of x cubed plus f of x times the derivative with respect to x of g of x cubed. All right, so now I'll leave everything the way it is here. except for over here. So let's bring everything down. I'm going to have f prime of x times g of x cubed plus f of x times, right here I see my inside function is g of x, my outside function is u cubed, so I'm going to bring down the 3, I'm going to have g of x squared. I have to bring out the inside function and multiply by the derivative of the inside. Now, from here, what I'm going to do is go ahead and plug in my values. For this problem, I'm talking about when x equals 0. So plug in 0, f prime of 0 times g of 0 cubed plus f of 0 times 3 times g of 0 squared times g prime of 0. Now, let's go to our table. It says that f of 0 is 1, or f prime of 0, sorry about that. F prime of 0 is 5, g of 0 is 1, f of 0 is 1 times 3, g of 0 is 1, g prime of 0 is 1/3. So let's keep multiplying. So that becomes 5 times 1/3, or 5 times 1 cubed, or 5, plus 1 times 3 times 1 times 1/3 is 1. Add these together, I get my answer is 6. So to review for this problem, before I took the derivative of g cubed of x, I first had to rewrite this as g of x cubed. All right, apply the product rule. All right, and then down here, after I applied the product rule, I had to use the chain rule over here on g of x cubed. All right, let's do one more of these. All right, for letter C, I'm talking about f of g of x and x is 0. Let's start by taking the derivative with respect to x. I see that I have the outside function and an inside function, so I need to apply the chain rule. This becomes f prime of g of x. Bring out the g of x, take its derivative, and multiply. So now what I can do is plug in 0, so I have f prime of g of 0 times g prime of 0. Let's go to my table. So now it says that g of 0 is 1. So this becomes f prime of 1. G prime of 0 is 1/3. 1/3 is g prime of 0. G of 0 is 1. Now f prime of 1 is negative 1/3. Becomes negative 1/3 times positive 1/3, which is negative 1/9. All right. What I'd like for you to do right now is I have a different table for you. If you could please pause the video, and I'm gonna have you do most of these. You can go ahead and go through, pause the video, try these out. You're gonna do, we'll say letters A through E, and then we're gonna do F, G, and H in class tomorrow. So go ahead and do letters A through E. And I'm going to pause the video. You can pause the video. I'm going to keep going. All right. For letter A, we have 2 times f of x. When I take the derivative with respect to x, I get 2 times f prime of x. Plug in 2. F prime of 2 is 1/3. And I get 2/3. All right, for letter B, I have f of x plus g of x. Take the derivative with respect to x. All right, there's no products or quotients here, so this just becomes f prime of x plus g prime of x. I'm taking the derivative at 3, so I'm plugging in 3 now. So I'm going to have f prime of 3 plus g prime of 3. When I plug in f prime of 3 is 2 pi, g prime of 3 is 5. So I'm just going to have 2 pi plus 5, and you can leave it just like this. All right, let's go ahead and do letter C. Letter C says f prime of x, or f of x, times g of x. All right, so when I take the derivative here, I have to use the product rule because I'm multiplying. Taking the derivative of a product. So it's going to become f prime of x times g of x plus f of x times g prime of x. It's the product rule. All right, I'm evaluating at x equals 3. So let's go ahead and plug them in. So I'm going to have f prime of 3 times g of 3 plus f of 3 times g prime of 3. All right, let's start looking at our values. So it says f prime of 3 is 2 pi. G of 3 is -4. F of 3 is 3. G prime of 3 is 5. Multiply these and I get -8 pi plus 15. All right, let's look at letter D. All right, this time I have f of x over g of x. I see that we have a quotient here, so I need to apply the quotient rule, d dx, f of x over g of x. That's going to be equal to f prime of x times g of x, not g of x, g of x, minus f of x times g prime of x, all over g of x squared. All right, I'm evaluating at 2, so I'm going to plug in 2 now. So that gives me f prime of 2 times g of 2 minus f of 2 times g prime of 2 all over g of 2 squared. All right, let's start looking at our chart. So now f prime of 2 is 1/3. G of 2 is 2. F of 2 is 8. G prime of 2 is negative 3. All over G of 2 squared. That's 2 squared, or 4. Now we have to keep going. I gotta bring it over here. Keep working down. So that gives me 2/3 plus 24 all over 4. That's 24 and 2/3 all over 4. And you add them together. Change this to an improper fraction so we can divide. I get 72 or 74 over 3 all over 4. It's 24 times 3 plus 2. And now I'm just going to multiply by the reciprocal. Cross cancel, divide by 2, I get 37. Divide by 2, I get 2. I get 37 over 6. Alright. We'll do the other 4 problems in class because this video is getting a little longer. So we'll do E, F, G, and H in class when you come tomorrow.